In just a little while, we will pray boldly. Open our eyes to see your hand, God, in the world around us. Deliver us from the presumption of coming to this table for solace only and not for strength, for pardon only and not for renewal. We will be bold in these prayers. We are also specific, so bold as to be specific in these prayers. Open our eyes to see your hand at work in the world about us. Deliver us from the presumption of coming together for solace only and not for strength, for pardon only and not for renewal. We are bold and specific in these prayers. And our boldness in prayer, our specificity in prayer, trains our eye to see exactly that. The works of God all around us. Sometimes what we see is amazingly exactly what we have asked for. Sometimes, amazingly, what we see is exactly what we have asked for, but in a much different form than what we have imagined. Sometimes we keep looking and looking, and we do not see any form of what we have prayed for. But we see God's actions amazing nonetheless. Abraham's servant is bold and specific in his prayer. Abraham sends him from where they are to a land where perhaps the servant has never been, on a long and uncertain journey for one purpose: to find a wife for Abraham's son, Isaac. The servant, upon receiving this charge, is worried, for how will he know who he is looking for? How will he know God's providence if and when it is right in front of his eyes? And immediately he prays, and not just that, but he prays boldly and specifically. May the one at the well who offers water not only to me, but to the camels with me, be the one. May I be so bold, he prays, to ask that the companion for Isaac be generous and thoughtful and humble. May I be so bold to ask that the companion for Isaac think of all those around her and offer what she has. May I be so bold to be so specific. And as he is praying, no sooner have the words been spoken and no sooner have they arisen in his heart than right there at the spring, he sees a woman come forward and offer him water, and immediately also the camels. And immediately, because he has been so bold and so specific, he knows that the person in front of him is the one. Are we so bold? Are we so specific? Such boldness and specificity in prayer comes not from a place of ego. No, it comes from a place of trust, knowing that the one to whom we pray is able, and loving, and can do amazing, amazing things, who knows our needs before we even know them, and wants only to be close with us, wants only to be in conversation with us, wants only to hear and carry the burdens of our hearts. When I think of Abraham's servant in this story from Genesis, I think immediately of my friend, whose name is also Emily. She died tragically about 6 weeks ago. I think of her often, and I certainly think of her when I consider Abraham's servant and his boldness and specificity of prayer arising from a deep and continual trust and conversation with the Lord. For that also defined Emily, the way she lived her life, and her life in constant, continual conversation with Jesus. She was bold and specific in her prayer. A friend and I were remembering Emily, and our friend Maggie remembered a time when the two of them met up for coffee. Just a regular catching up at a Starbucks in Logan Square in Chicago. And Maggie, who is a musician, was talking about the different concerts and gigs and programs that she was involved in. She also spoke about one opportunity she had that she didn't think she would be able to embrace. It was a training program in another country, and she just couldn't see how the funding would come together for that, but she was grateful to have been invited into this special program. And Emily said immediately, Maggie, this is why we're having coffee together right now. Because my husband and I have been praying. We have felt a burden that the Lord wants us to give to someone in need. We have felt a burden of generosity, and it has been welling up in our hearts, but we didn't know what to do with it. So we have been talking with the Lord in prayer, and we have been asking boldly and specifically, I would say, that the Lord would place the person or situation right in front of them. We have been asking, she said, who the Lord wants us to help. We understand our call. We ask the Lord to be more specific with us. Therefore, Emily said, that is why we are having coffee right now. How can we help you, Maggie, embrace this opportunity? Is there anything we can do to help you participate in this special program? We worked together. Maggie was able to participate. This bold, specific prayer of Emily and her husband led her to understand exactly who was in front of her, Maggie, at the coffee shop, in need of the specific form of help with which Emily and her husband had been burdened and looking for ways to share. Her eye was trained to see and to respond immediately. I can add other ways that Emily responded to me in conversation. How her prayer overflowed with boldness and specificity, such that she was able to see and respond immediately and amazing. Her prayer is deep and full of trust. And the burdens that she carried, whether of generosity welling up, ready to be shared, whether of uncertainty of what the future would hold, whether of pain and complex grief in her family's life, she shared it with Jesus. And thus her burdens became light. Jesus' burden, he says, is light, and his yoke upon shoulders is easy because he wants to hear and share what we hear. And as we share and pray with trust, awe, specificity, and boldness, the burden is light, joyful, and incredible. Behind me is a floral icon behind the cross. And I invite you, after the service or during communion, to gaze upon that. Richard, who designed, constructed the icon, pointed out to me a couple of things that a couple of insights that I leave with you in closing. One is that there is a yoke, he says, a light and subtle yoke around the cross. And he invites us to look for it and look at it, considering what burdens and yokes we might share with such lightness and even subtlety. Second, finally, is that the flowers in the icon come from his yard, from his and David's yard. Richard, along with all of us who have been experiencing the increases of prices and inflation of one kind or another. Inflation is also part of the flower market these days. And Richard is aware of and has been burdened by how expensive flowers and everything else is these days. And right as he was feeling those burdens, he looked around him in his yard and saw these amazing blooms all around him. So before us today are wildflowers from Richard and David's home. Abundance and joy all around us. Open our eyes that we might see your hand at work in the world around us. Deliver us from the presumption of coming to this table for solace only and not for strength, for pardon only, and not for renewal. Amen.